Hey everybody, my name is Danielle and this is Chatter Out Loud. Thank you so much for joining me. Your presence is very much appreciated. So welcome or welcome back. I wanted to share an update on Big Brother Season 24, BB24. So if you're interested, keep listening. Okay, you guys, we've had another eviction under our belt and Indy is out. And she is now the first juror that will help crown the winner of BB24. She'll be spending the rest of her summer in what she calls the summer house. Indy went out on a Taylor HOH. Yeah, and while I don't think it was favorable to Taylor, overall this was not who Taylor wanted out. Her original target was Terrence. She wavered after her own alliance pretty much controlled her HOH week. A couple of members of the alliance wanted Alyssa out, but it would have required Kyle to use the veto because he won the veto last week. And it didn't make sense for Kyle's game to use the veto. You know, I get that part. Because Alyssa is an ally for Kyle, right? Outside of his own alliances. So he has more coverage. And then we know showmances. Or I should say, we know that in Kyle's showmance, Kyle and Alyssa, Kyle is just whipped, I guess. However, this move in getting Indy out, it did hurt Kyle in terms of his own alliance. We'll have to see how much of an impact it has. But the alliance wasn't happy that he was willing to put Alyssa before the alliance, right? Because the alliance wanted one thing. Kyle didn't think it benefited his game. So he's like, no. And he didn't use the veto. And that pretty much showed his hand, right? He's like, no, I'm doing this because it benefits me. And he put that over the alliance. So it'll be pretty interesting to see when and if that has impact into Kyle's personal game. But going back for a second, Taylor's target was indeed Terrence, and the alliance did not respect her wishes at all and wound up voting Indy out. Taylor had a bit of a turbulent HOH. She was making promises to the girls. She had to break her promise with Indy. Well, first of all, I don't think she should have promised anyone anything. Her purpose of doing this and making promises, is that she was trying to get the girls to like her. But this will never happen. And it's so interesting to watch all of this go down because Taylor really wants the women to like her. But they never will. I think we're so beyond that. And when all this is said and done, the game is over. I feel like Taylor's people, like her family, her friends, will protect her and keep her away from these people. Like allow them to apologize, yes, but none of them deserve a friendship. All right. They meaning the girls continue to be jealous and they just don't like Taylor, and it's not going to happen. And I think the way they move in the game is because Taylor had power. Of course you move differently, right? But the players will always move differently depending upon who is the HOH, right? You're playing a game. But nevertheless, Taylor is trying to work at a better social game. I thought she did do a little bit better or improved her social game a lot within her HOH week, which on some level, I guess her social game to me is better than it was. It's in a better state than it was prior to her winning HOH. So I thought she had a win. She may not have had wins a big win, I should say, but she had a win there. I think she's made progress, but her HOH was a little messy. So Indy is out on Taylor's HOH. Last night's episode, which we all are never going to be able to get those 2 hours back. Last night's episode was bad. At least the first, hour and a half, right? It was a 2-hour episode. Not only did I feel that they really didn't have quality content in last night's 2-hour episode, but there were a lot of performances last night. which also contributed to why the episode was bad. The first performance that comes to mind is Indy in her exit, right? After she was voted out. Was anyone else saying, all right, Indy, you can leave now? She gave this long speech. I was shocked that production and Julie allowed her to take up so much time and have all these words and all this stuff. It just seemed fake. She was upset, of course, because she was leaving, but it just was it was such a long exit, and I couldn't believe that it kept going on and on. But that was the first performance. Then let's talk about Mr. Kyle and his performances in the DR. He was such an ass with his, all right, Taylor, you do you, referring to how Taylor was playing up him not using the veto, right? When they were in the storage room, she's like, you're supposed to use the veto. And I mean, I admit, I was like, Taylor, what are you doing? Like, I don't think any of that was necessary. And I don't know why they're continuing this game of keeping their alliance hidden, because pretty much everyone has it figured out, right? People know where the lines are drawn. They are just waiting for an opportune time when they have the power to strike, right? People know more than you give them credit for. They're just waiting for the time when they are in power to do something about it. But no one's really fooling anyone, right? Or are they? I don't know. Anyway, Kyle had a smart-ass remark implying that Taylor was doing too much, right? Well, whatever, Taylor, you do you. Which I do agree in that sense, that her yelling, you're supposed to use the veto, was a bit much. I didn't think that was necessary, but I didn't like Kyle's attitude and how he had the audacity to talk like that in the DR. But then let's talk about Kyle and his talking to the cameras, right? Talk about someone who's doing too much. When he talks to the cameras like, I love Alyssa, she's so hot. And when he talks to Alyssa, he's like, I like having sexual intercourse with you, but if you want to stop because I only go 10 seconds, then we can. And then we're boyfriend and girlfriend now, America. And let's not forget, when they were forming the leftovers, he's like, Taylor is back, baby. He is so performative. It's pathetic. When they formed the leftovers, it was fake in terms of, or self-serving in terms of his part, right? He's not only performative, and I'll say it again, I never believed him, or any of them for that matter, in terms of the reason of why they created the leftovers. It sounded nice, it looked nice for TV, but based on the actions that we're seeing over the past couple of weeks, it just wasn't sincere. It was self-serving, right? It wasn't in response to how Taylor was being treated. It was in response to production probably telling them, this doesn't look good, guys. You're bullying, you're ostracizing. It's not a good look. And someone came up with this idea in production, and they tipped them off. And then here we have the leftovers. I never believed it in terms of the sincerity behind it. All right. Going back to Kyle, he's a man-child, right? He looks crazy on the feeds. His racial bias is so blinding. He just looks foolish. All right. Other performances I wanted to talk about last night coming from Michael and Brittany. I never believed them either. They were complicit in the poor treatment of Taylor by staying silent. What they're doing now, I feel, is showing to be a little arrogance, and they are real comfortable, right? But notice it's only when Michael has power, when Michael's won a veto, or when Michael's won an HOH, right? Because Brittany hasn't won anything to contribute to initiating a big move in the house, right? She's a vote, yes, but Brittany can go. And last night, or rather this morning, when I heard Michael say that if Joseph goes this week, oh well, because he wanted Terrence out to begin with, but Taylor wanted Indy out. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Michael, you're such a joke. The revisionist history, it just cracks me up. I can't stand it. I don't like Michael either. By the way, in terms of him saying Taylor wanted Terrence out, or Taylor wanted Indy out opposed to Terrence, that's a lie. And how convenient is it for Michael to rewrite history and his audience of one with Brittany, right? I've just come to the conclusion that Michael and Brittany have terrible social games. They only talk to each other. Yes, they are in an alliance, but their truth and their real strategy is with one another. It's just interesting to witness. But yeah, Michael and his revisionist history. Ugh. Moving on to Terrence. This guy is so wanting and needing to belong. It's just borderline cringe, right? I still think he has a weak game. I think he's weak in the game. He's weak in terms of strategy. He wants so bad to be one of the bros making move, but he's not. Terrence is weak. I can't stand watching him on the feeds and trying to talk game. He's terrible at it. He's weak. He switches with every person he talks to, and it's not a smooth transition from one house guest to another. It's pathetic. He's weak in this game. He has no strategy. He just bounces around and trying to find, like, who can I be a bro with? Ugh. Jasmine. This is another performer we have. Jasmine, and not wanting to do anything because of her birthday. And then it moved into a birthday week. She didn't want to be a have-not because it was her birthday week. She didn't want to have a punishment during the veto because it was her birthday week. She didn't want to be nominated. And she never wants to walk on that foot. And how about her performance with how long she's milked this ankle injury? I mean, it's just... Talk about performances, right? And let's not forget her fake accent. I notice, like, each week she's losing the accent, right? And it's always put on or turned on when she says hello to Julie, right? And her silly little line she likes to come up with. Performative. Who else? Well, I think that's enough. I don't want this to be too long. I'm already past 12 minutes. So the most important thing I wanted to share were updates in terms of where the week is headed, right? So I wanted to share that last night's episode, we watched 2 new HOHs crowned. The person that won and the runner-up were titled with HOH for the week. Michael won the HOH, and because Terrence came in second place, he was named the second HOH. So as I mentioned in my last update, we learned that this week, the upcoming week, we'll have the HOHs, this week we'll have the HOHs and 2 games running in parallel. There are 10 house guests remaining after Indy was voted out. And with this new twist, the house is going to be divided into 2 games. 5 house guests indoors, which is the Brochella, and 5 house guests outdoors, which is the Dire Fest. Michael is the indoor HOH, and he picked Brittany, Taylor, Jasmine, and Monty. Terrence is the outdoor HOH, and he picked Turner, Joseph, Kyle, and Alyssa. And as it appears at this time of me recording this, Michael is targeting Jasmine and Terrence is targeting Joseph. With Michael, it's pretty much straightforward, and I get it. Jasmine is not a likable person in the house, nor is she likable to fans, right? And we get that. And she's not part of the leftover alliance. Terrence is targeting Joseph. It's not a terrible move. However, it's almost a given that in Big Brother, you should be targeting the showmans, right? Especially when you're not aligned with them. The thing is, Terrence isn't really aligned with anyone. He's floundering around the game, and in my opinion, he's just a weak player. Terrence is weak in this game. Terrence is weak. He has no strategy. He will never be known as a BB great. Terrence is weak. Anyway, both will have a week of Big Brother in terms of both Brochella and the Dire Fest. Both sets or both groups will have their individual games of or individual week of Big Brother, including nominations, the veto ceremony, and an eviction. And that all leads up to the double eviction next Thursday. I thought this was an interesting twist, but was it really thought out? I mean, especially the outdoor. They have to have a makeshift camp to sleep, like with tents and sleeping bags. I haven't seen how they are cooking, eating, and washing up. I saw Alicia brushing her teeth, but is there a sink or anything? I thought I heard there's porta potties, but I haven't seen that yet. And Anyway, 2 separate games running in parallel. Each group only has interaction with the people within that specific group. Both groups cannot interact with one another. So this definitely helps with breaking up dominant alliances, right? But Kyle was already doing that and messing all of the leftovers alliance up with his conspiracy about the Cookout 2.0 when we know it doesn't exist. Anyway, this twist will lead us into the double eviction next week. So 2 HOHs, 2 HOHs, 2 sets of nominees, 2 vetoes, and 2 evictions. I'll check in later on tonight or tomorrow morning on nominees. I still have to watch the TV episode with the veto competition. I haven't seen that one yet. And I was so annoyed with the TV edit last night. That's another thing. I don't want to go on this long rant. For a show that touts how it's a social experiment and it mirrors life, why do they work so hard to intentionally hide crucial elements of what's happening inside the house, right? That's what just gets on my nerves. Show how Kyle is ridiculous and his conspiracy, and the fact that it happened 2 weeks ago, right? The way they aired it last night, you would think that Kyle had a legitimate claim and reasoning for how he came to his conclusion. But we all know it's implicit bias, right? It's his racial bias. He keeps throwing out the term cookout. He has no idea what he's talking about. It's just so freaking annoying. But anyway, and then Michael and Brittany, how they were shown last night to be kind of like aware of optics and trying to bring Kyle into the light in terms of, well, if you have to look at the optics of what we're saying, and I don't want to be a part of that. Like, I don't buy that at all. I think they were tipped off by production because they were falling for all of this, the Cookout 2.0 and the black people coming together. They were all into it like a week ago, and now all of a sudden they're not. It's just so fake. Like, we know that this is happening. Just air it how it's happening, right? And the fact that they showed like how Taylor was twerking in the bed, like because her and Joseph were part of their punishment from the veto comp last week was to be tethered together, and she was dancing in the bed and stuff like that. How come they couldn't show Alyssa and how she's twerked and humped the floor? And how come they can't show like Kyle and Alyssa or, having sex? I mean, it was only 10 seconds each time, according to Kyle. So that wouldn't have taken much airtime. I hate when Big Brother touts like, oh, it's a social experiment and it mirrors real life. And yet you intentionally hide things. I just don't like it. But Big Brother's a show. I get it. There are fan favorites, they're production favorites, and I get that too. I'm just about over the season, really. And again, I don't like this cast. I'm only watching because Taylor's still in it. It's evident that the further we go along in the game, the more people are showing who they really are. And they're just like, most of these people are just not, they're not likable. That's all I can come to. But anyway. I wanted to also make mention of Monty's apology. He did apologize to Taylor. I like the way he apologized. I like how he articulated his point of view. I thought he sounded sincere. I thought he took accountability, and it didn't sound like it was a convenience for the game, like a game move, So my view has shifted a little bit on Monty just based on that action he took. So I don't know if I'll necessarily approve, like I have any authority over Taylor, but I wouldn't approve of anyone being friends with Taylor outside of this game after it's all done. They all were horrible. And yes, they can apologize and be sorry, but in terms of like long-term real friendships, I don't see it. But that's not for me to say, just my opinion. All right, so you have to let me know what you think of the twist in terms of the parallel games, and what do you think about the targets, like who Michael is targeting. As of right now, Michael's targeting Jasmine, and as of right now, Terrence is targeting Joseph. You have to let me know your thoughts about that, right? Just leave me a comment and let me know what you think. All right, and that's all I have. I'd love for you to like, share, follow, and subscribe, all of which will help my channel grow, so thank you in advance. All right, my name is Danielle. This is Chatter Out Loud. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, I appreciate your, As always, I appreciate your support. And that's all I have. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.